The German economy is going through one of the most dangerous moments in its modern history. A country that for decades was considered the industrial heart of Europe now stands on the verge of systemic collapse. After the pandemic, the energy crisis, the imposed sanctions, and the growing tariffs from the United States, the German industrial engine is increasingly choking. Factories are cutting production, car manufacturers are losing their global positions, and the economy, according to Deutsche and Handels, has officially entered a recession. Inflation and electricity costs remain at historic highs. Investors are fleeing, and young professionals are leaving in large numbers. Germany no longer looks like a reliable engine of Europe, but rather like a country barely maintaining balance on the ruins of its industrial era. Yet amid this economic agony, according to insiders from Der Spiegel and the South China Morning Post, an unexpected player has appeared on the political horizon: China. Sources close to the Chancellery claim that Beijing has offered Berlin an unprecedented deal that could become a turning point not only for Germany itself, but for all of Europe. Essentially, it is an economic aid package disguised as a strategic partnership. Cheap loans, long-term contracts for the supply of critical minerals, preferential conditions for German car manufacturers, and joint technological projects. All of this looks like a lifeline thrown to a drowning Germany. But for every such assistance, as is well known, China demands a price, and in this case, according to analysts from the Financial Times, the price may be too high. Beijing is reportedly demanding not only trade preferences, but also equity participation in Germany's key industrial hubs, from energy and logistics to mechanical engineering. Moreover, according to diplomatic sources, Chinese partners are pushing for the coordination of Berlin's foreign policy as part of its confrontation with the United States. This effectively means that Germany must stop blindly following Washington and begin forming a new axis of pragmatism together with Beijing. For Berlin, this sounds almost like blackmail. But under current conditions, the German government has fewer and fewer options. Chancellor Friedrich Merz, as noted by Politico Europe, has found himself trapped between Trump's destructive tariffs and China's tempting offers. On one side is the old ally who is now suffocating German exports by introducing new duties on cars, batteries, and steel. On the other is China, which openly declares its readiness to support German industry in exchange for a strategic partnership. In essence, Beijing is offering Berlin a deal with the devil on the backdrop of the rapid decline of industrial production, job cuts, and the crisis in the automotive sector, which for a long time was the symbol of German strength. More and more politicians and business people within the country are beginning to think that China is not a threat, but a salvation, especially considering that it was Beijing in recent years that deliberately complicated the supply of rare earth metals and components, without which German factories simply cannot operate. Many experts in Berlin believe this was part of a calculated strategy, first to create dependency, then to use it as leverage to secure the desired terms. According to sources from the Frankfurter Allgemeine and Zeitun, negotiations with the Chinese delegation have been taking place behind closed doors for several weeks. The Chinese are offering an aid package of up to 20 billion euro in the form of loans, subsidies, and joint funds, in exchange for guaranteed access to the infrastructure of Germany's ports and industrial zones. This includes Hamburg, Duisburg, and Leipzig, hubs that ensure logistics across all of Europe. In fact, if the deal goes through, China will gain direct influence over the key transport and production arteries of the European Union. The irony is that the United States, Germany's main ally, is watching this process almost passively. Donald Trump, focused on domestic policy and new tariffs, is effectively finishing off German industry with his measures, opening the way for China to achieve economic dominance in Europe. Analysts from the Economist Intelligence Unit are already calling what is happening a soft economic coup through which China is step by step turning the old continent into a sphere of its influence. While Europe is torn between sanctions and the search for cheap energy resources, China patiently builds its empire not with guns and wars, but with loans, infrastructure, and industrial deals. Panic is growing within Germany. Some politicians demand that the Chinese offer be rejected, while others call to accept the help in order to save the economy. The government is trying to maintain neutrality, but everything indicates that the country stands on the threshold of a historic choice. Either Germany remains loyal to its old alliances and risks sinking deeper into recession, or it enters a new era where its ally will be China, a power for whom the European crisis has become a perfect opportunity to strengthen its position. And if the latest data from Reuters is to be believed, it is Beijing that is now shaping the agenda of the European economy. Germany, once the leading and proud nation of Europe, is now forced to make decisions not from a position of strength, but one of survival. As the situation in the German economy deteriorates, there are more and more signs that the crisis is not cyclical, but structural. The factories of BASF, Siemens, Volkswagen, and BMW report large-scale staff cuts, shutdowns of production lines, and the relocation of part of their capacities to Asia and North America. The energy crisis, caused by the halt of Russian gas supplies and record electricity prices, has destroyed the model of cheap production on which German industry relied for the past half-century. According to Bloomberg Economics, the cost of automobile production in Germany has risen by almost 40% in 2 years, making its products uncompetitive on the global market. The sharp decline in export orders, especially from China and the United States, has worsened the situation. As a result, even giants once considered unsinkable have begun to lose profits and close branches. Economists call this the beginning of deindustrialization of Germany. It is at this moment, according to reports from Nikkei Asia and Süddeutsche Zeitung, China has re-entered the game. At a recent closed summit in Beijing, representatives of the Chinese government, according to insiders, offered the German delegation a new format of cooperation, the creation of a joint industrial alliance that would combine German technology and Chinese capital. In return, Beijing demands open access to know-how in the fields of electric vehicles, robotics, and energy, the very sectors that still keep Germany afloat. Chinese media present this as a mutually beneficial partnership, but European analysts see it as an attempt at strategic absorption. In essence, China is offering Germany to become part of its economic sphere while maintaining the appearance of independence. Meanwhile, a split is growing in Berlin. Part of the political establishment, including representatives of the Social Democratic Party and business leaders, leans toward accepting Chinese assistance, calling it a temporary compromise to save jobs. However, the opposition and European partners warned that such a deal could permanently undermine Germany's sovereignty. In Brussels, emergency discussions have already begun on possible sanctions against Chinese companies attempting to buy German assets. But doing so without Germany's consent is impossible. The European Union is more divided than ever. France demands limiting China's influence, while Germany seeks ways to survive at any cost. The most alarming aspect for Berlin is that the United States, the traditional protector of German interests, has taken a wait-and-see stance. Donald Trump continues his policy of economic pressure, accusing Germany of unfair trade practices and weakness toward China. He has openly stated that Germany has chosen the path of dependence and must pay for its mistakes. In essence, Washington has stepped back from its ally, giving Germany the opportunity to navigate the crisis on its own. But doing so independently is no longer possible. Germany's financial system is overloaded with debt, exports are collapsing, and industry is losing markets. Therefore, the Chinese helping hand, however cynical it may be, appears to be the last chance. This may well be the new era of global geopolitics, not through wars and revolutions, but through loans, trade, and technological dependence. Germany, once a symbol of stability and strength, now faces a choice: accept Chinese assistance and lose part of its sovereignty, or reject it and collapse completely. As experts at The Economist note, in the face of an impending industrial depression, this choice is no longer moral but instinctive. a choice between the life and death of the economy.